You may have noticed that especially for US citizens, foreign travel opportunities are few and far between right now. As I record this, COVID-19 is running roughshod through the United States, and the European Union has just declared an indefinite ban on all visitors from the US. Hopefully this won't last long, but you never know. My trips to Lisbon and Amsterdam, Rwanda and the Congo are already kaput, and it probably puts the kibosh on my planned trips to Croatia and Oslo. Fortunately, the miles are refunded and trip vouchers for future travel are obtained, if there even is future travel. As Carson mentioned, this is a good time to stockpile points. Check out the video here. But if you have the travel bug like I do, you might be asking yourself, is there any point to traveling at all? Where can I even go? Some countries are actually encouraging tourism, including countries that, well, depend on tourism for their very survival, like the Maldives. This small island nation in the Indian Ocean is known for its luxury beach resorts. The Maldives had some of the lowest COVID stats in the world. As of this recording, according to the Johns Hopkins University Coronavirus Resource Center, the Maldives has weathered 2,361 known cases, only 9 deaths, with a case fatality rate of only 0.4% and only 1.74 deaths per 100,000 in population. By comparison, the US has over 2.6 million cases, over 120,000 deaths, and yes, there are a lot more people in the US than in the Maldives, but the US has a case fatality rate of just under 5% and almost 40 deaths per 100,000. Italy, where the virus is now more under control, had a case fatality rate of almost 15%, but only 44 deaths per 100,000, not many more than the US currently has. Our case fatality rate is probably so low because mass testing is implemented, with more mild cases being detected, and also because COVID is spreading so rapidly through the younger population. We're less likely to die, thankfully, but for those who do die, those are deaths that arguably could have been avoided with better policy. Other studies put our case fatality rate higher, by the way, but JHU gives us a point of comparison. But island resorts aren't really my style. Rio, Prague, Berlin, Tokyo. I'm a city boy. Are there even opportunities for a city boy in a COVID world to travel? Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk Turkey. The nation of Turkey is actually encouraging travel as well, yes, even Americans. Turkey is an ancient country, rich with history. It's one of the settings of the New Testament biblical Gospels, and was a setting of the classical Greek, Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman empires. It has one of the world's great heritage cities, Istanbul. While most of mainland Turkey is technically in Asia, in the vicinity of the Middle East, part of Istanbul Metro is across the narrow Bosphorus Strait and technically in Europe, making Istanbul a historic gateway between Europe and Asia. The ancient Greeks called it Byzantium. When Emperor Constantine made it a capital of the Roman Empire, it was renamed for him, Constantinople. The Ottomans renamed it Istanbul. These layers of history stack up to create the modern cosmopolitan metropolis of Istanbul. 15 million people, many of them young, most of them practicing a liberal version of Sunni Islam. Drinking and dancing are widespread, with no laws requiring men or women to cover themselves. Istanbul is not actually the capital of Turkey, that would be Ankara, but in the same way that neither New York, LA, or Chicago are the capitals of the US, Istanbul is the place to be in Turkey. When I read that Turkey might be accepting US visitors when many people weren't, I did what I've been doing during this crisis to get reliable travel info. I emailed the embassy. Most news sites are posting only hysterics about COVID, assuming that no one in their right mind wants to travel right now. So reliable travel info has been hard to come by, but the embassies in the US definitely know. You might think that emailing an embassy is like emailing the president or Beyonce. You don't actually expect to get a reply from the person. But I was pleasantly surprised. So far, the Croatian, Swedish, and Turkish embassies have gotten right back to me when I email and ask, hey, are you letting US visitors into your country right now? By the way, to do this yourself, you want to look up the country's embassy in the US, not the US embassy in the country. So in the case of Turkey, you want the Turkish embassy in Washington, not the US embassy in Ankara. The Turkish ambassador is the representative in the US of the Turkish government, and the ambassador and the ambassador's staff know what's up with Turkish travel policy. It's their country, it's their job to know. So the Turkish embassy got back to me and confirmed that yes, US citizens are allowed in with no restrictions. He told me to keep an eye on the Turkish Airlines website for up-to-date information. As you might guess, Turkish Airlines is the national flag carrier airline in Turkey. It's also a member of the Star Alliance, meaning you can use United, Air Canada, Avianca, or Aegean Miles to book flights on Turkish Airlines, often with better rates than with Turkish Airlines' own mileage program. Turkish Airlines is putting its money where its mouth is, too, by adding back its Istanbul direct flights to the US. Sitting at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, with strong relationships in both the Muslim and Christian world, Turkish Airlines actually flies more places than any other airline. In better times, it operated direct routes from Istanbul to and from Chicago O'Hare, Houston Bush, LAX, Miami, JFK, and SFO. Check routes before you book, but with tourism encouraged and routes being opened instead of closed during the pandemic, you probably have a better chance of your flight not getting canceled, or at least an acceptable rebooking. Think of the convenience of a direct flight from the US to Central Asia. It's a long flight, between 11 and 13 hours, but no coronavirus-infested airports to get off on. Turkish 787s and A350s recently got a swank new business class product, but bad news. Due to COVID health concerns for the flight crew, their industry-leading multi-course meal service has been truncated to box meal service. So is it really worth the extra points? It depends. For the red-eye leg of the trip, maybe. You can get some sleep in that more comfortable seat and keep your immune system intact. But I hate to book a business class product and not get the full experience, so caveat emptor, we'll see what I end up doing if I decide to go. Which brings us to the question, is it safe or even ethical to travel right now as an American? Let's see how Turkey is doing. As of today, Turkey has just under 200,000 cases with over 5,000 deaths, a case fatality rate of 2.6%, and a rate of 6.23 deaths per 100,000. These low numbers are partially due to the fact that Turkey has a young population, cracked down early on the movement of both the elderly and young populations, and has one of the highest percentages of ICU beds per person in the world, most of them concentrated in Istanbul. Now, some people have said, well, if they want to allow Americans, they'll pay a price. It's irresponsible and unethical as an American to travel the world right now. I see where they're coming from, but I think that's an overreaction. America has an alarming 2.6 million plus recorded cases, that's not including recoveries, but that's still a small fraction of the 300 plus million American population. In other words, an alarming number of us have it, but not nearly all. It's physically impossible for an American to bring COVID to Turkey if that American is COVID negative. The American nationality and the virus are not interchangeable. I also think it's paternalistic to act like Turkey can't determine its own immigration and tourism policy. Remember, Turkey still has its own cases of COVID, although they have it remarkably under control compared to the US. Let them do their own risk assessment as to whether an extra case from America will break the back of their underwhelmed ICU bed inventory. And I do believe in responsible travel, which is why I recommend getting COVID molecular tests before you travel. Be prepared to change your travel plans if you start to feel symptoms or discover that you were exposed to an infected person. This partially means travel insurance and refundable or changeable tickets. I even suggest building a 2-week quarantine period into your travel plans, as well as making arrangements to get tested once you're in country. If your travel schedule can't handle a 2-week buffer, then yeah, maybe don't do it. Is it even safe to fly right now? Not from an aviation standpoint, but from a coronavirus standpoint. Airplanes are pressurized metal tubes that recycle air. Some airlines had a mask policy and limited flight capacity to facilitate social distancing, or as I like to call it, social D, or just the D. But lots of airlines are relaxing these policies. Airlines do pump the air out of the airplane and refresh it with exterior air so we don't, smother in our own carbon dioxide, but the process is not instantaneous. Experts don't quite agree, but generally speaking, you could be breathing the exhaled air of people 2 to 7 rows away from you for several minutes. Not as bad as being in an unventilated room with them, but still not great. There isn't a whole lot of good news to be had here, so I'm going to be weighing my options very carefully. I haven't decided to plan a trip to Istanbul yet, considering the safety of flying and downgrading of service on Turkish for the safety of the flight crew. But I do have the travel bug. It hasn't gone anywhere. It could still happen. Turkey is currently doing well against the new coronavirus and welcoming American visitors. Istanbul is a World Heritage City, site of attractions like Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque. Hopefully this fires some of your imaginations with the understanding that the world hasn't shut down completely and world-class travel experiences still await the intrepid, the foolish, or both. Make sure to hit the thumbs up if you liked this video content. If you didn't like it, maybe keep that to yourself. Make sure to subscribe to the Travel Punks YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon so your phone yells at you whenever we post a new video. Make sure to check out the Travel Punks podcast wherever finer podcasts are sold for free. And make sure to leave a comment if you have a comment.